what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Command Your Confidence. And today I'm joined with Marni from the Wing Lady. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's actually Wing Girl Method.
Okay, Wing Girl Method. Thanks for the correction. So yeah, she's gonna talk about herself and what she does, and then we're gonna go into a topic and everything. So Marni, why don't you tell us more about like what it is you do and what your brand's all about, and how you help
Yeah,
guys
so
out?
I help men understand women so they can attract the women that they want. But really, secretly, what I'm doing is helping them understand themselves more, gain confidence, learn how to be the leaders that they know they can be, so that they can be the men that they want, and then the women will just follow.
Mm-hmm. So like, that's interesting that you said that because I think that's one of like common problems with men. And it's something that I was struggling with too. Is this being able, I was that nice guy and everything. I was afraid to like flirt with a girl. I was afraid to actually take the lead, and I
Yeah.
think that can be a bad thing. And so how would you say what like if you were coaching someone like when if they're having a hard time doing that, how do you help them like gain that leadership skill? And what
I
do
mean,
they need to
that's a
know?
whole process. There's simple little tricks for sure. Just it depends on what's going on with that guy. So for some guys that we work with, there's past trauma that has them becoming Mr. Nice Guy, which means that they are pleasers and appeasers, right? And it's been programmed into them for a very long time. So there's deeper work to be done, figuring out where the trauma comes from, readjusting it, reframing it, and then rebuilding confidence. But for most guys that I work with, it's really just giving them the guidance on how to break things down into baby steps and not put so much pressure on themselves, as well as give them permission and the knowledge to know that women actually do want you approaching them, right? They don't
Hmm.
want somebody who's like fumbling and bumbling and not so confident approaching them. But if you're a good guy, you're an awesome guy, they want you approaching them. That's what they're looking for when they're out there. So you're really doing a disservice. So I would help guys break down an approach into baby steps. So for a lot of guys, they put heavy focus on, I'm going to approach her, I'm going to attract her, I'm going to ask her out, right? So they're not
Right.
really present in the interaction. So I tell them to break it down into baby steps and break it down that there's smaller intentions. So the first thing that they have to focus on, that girl's cute, I want to approach her and see what she's all about. And that's a practice to be able to stay in that mindset. But go up to the girl, approach her from that place. And then I give, different tools as well about how to approach. And then when you're in the interaction, then you enjoy the interaction, see how she is, who she is, how she interacts with you. And then you go to the next intention. Okay, do I like this girl enough to ask her out? Right? Or do I like
Hmm.
this girl enough to actually start flirting with her and escalate what I'm doing right now? So really what I'm teaching guys is to put the control and the power and the leadership on them rather than putting it into the hands of this woman that they do not know.
Right. So, and I like how you say that baby steps. 'Cause I think, like, I remember before I even worked with a mentor, even went with you, like, I was just focusing on a lot at the time rather than chunking it down. And I think with any goal or any new habit, that's important to like start small and then grow from that. And I think, like,
Yeah.
I think, one of the things like I felt I always had to do was when I was starting to like talk to women, is I always thought like, well, I had to be perfect to like try and get a number instead of kind of focusing on what the woman's all about. And I like what you're saying because I think a lot of guys, fail to realize that they think, oh, well, this is a gorgeous girl, and they just forget to see, what she is like, her personality is like.
Yeah, and if they want her as well. And I think what happens is like, so there's so many guys that I talk with, and their approach for interacting with women is, I'm going to approach her and I'm going to ask her question after question after question. I'm going to figure out which topic's going to get her to open up, right? But what
Hmm.
happens is that when a man approaches in that way, it just feels like she's being berated. It feels like she's being interviewed, and right away, boom, 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 the barriers go up. I don't want to interact with you, which makes it harder for this great guy to break that seal so they can actually connect. So what I tell guys to do is reverse it. Instead of attempting to open her up, you open up first. You take the lead because that puts you at an advantage because you're in a more comfortable space rather than trying to figure out what this stranger is going to respond to. If you open up first and share and talk and joke around and talk to her like, she's somebody you've known forever, that's going to allow her to get more comfortable, feel a bit more safe, and then open up with you. Once she opens up, once there's some playfulness going on between the two of you, then you can escalate.
Right, exactly. No, and I had to agree with you on that because I think when you do it that way, when you're not doing it in an interview type of way, I think it comes up, the conversation becomes more natural and everything. And
100%. Yeah, it's not natural for somebody to come up and say like, "Hey, how's your day going?" "Great, that's awesome. So what are you doing today?" "Amazing. I love that. Love that you're going fishing." "Like fishing?" And I've had guys approach me like this so that they don't give me anything of them. I have no idea who they are. So really what I'm evaluating them on is, do I like how they look and do I like their energy? And most likely because of their interrogation, I don't like how they feel, right? And if I'm
Mhm.
not set on their looks, I'm not going to give more time to them. And even if I am
Right.
set on their looks, once they don't know how to actually like interact with me instead of just interrogate me and try to get me to give them information, that's going to lower my attraction level. So I've had
Mhm.
looking guys come up and approach me before and have no idea how to have a conversation. They again either put the conversation on me that I have to lead it, or they just ask me question after question and don't actually listen to what I'm saying as a response. And then I get exhausted, annoyed, and bored, and then I find a way to exit the conversation.
Mhm. Right, I think being a good listener is important too, because I think just by listening I always found like, by listening and paying attention to a woman's, when I'm interacting with a woman, I can develop more questions, like, from what she's saying that kind of get her to open up more rather than just
Totally.
change the topic all the time.
100%. But that's hard to do. If you get nervous in conversation in the beginning stages, it can be very challenging because you're in your head, right? So you're not focusing on the conversation that's in front of you. And I say to tons of guys, like women will give you information, will give you the thing to work with, right? It's for you
Mhm.
to then take that information, add your own take, add your expansion to it. So for example, if you're interacting with a woman and she mentioned something about just coming from dance class, right? Like many guys will skip over that and just continue talking or asking more questions. But the guy who's really listening will say, "Oh my God, you're coming from dance lessons. That's so funny." I actually took dance lessons when I was 7 years old. I was like, I did a tap class, got kicked out of that class because I was causing too many issues, blah, blah, blah. What kind of dance are you taking? Right. So it's like
Mhm.
they can use it as a moment to connect. And I'm a little bit more long winded than other people, but guys can do the same thing in their own style. And it's learning
Mhm.
once, and these are all things that I teach. It can't really be taught in a 30-minute interview. But once
Oh,
you
no,
can
it takes a lot of time and practice.
yeah, once you teach how to get out of your head and be in the moment and present, then you can start to pay attention to what's happening in front of you, and then you can learn to interact with it. So it's again,
Mhm.
it's baby steps.
Right. You know what I realized, it's funny that you're talking about being out of your head and being more authentic. That was always a problem that I had. Like, I always had to conceal myself. I had a kick-ass sense of humor. I was afraid to swear and, tell jokes and stuff, and it was weird. I became more comfortable with doing that. And I realized that there are some girls who actually like that and other girls who don't.
Yeah.
And I realized the ones who do like it and who have the vibe with are the ones that end up going somewhere rather than the ones that don't. And
Yeah.
that's and it's all and it takes a lot of work and just like self mastery and practice to do that because it's hard for most guys to be themselves because they feel they got to live up to a certain way, the way
And I
society
would
has
say,
taught them to
yeah.
be.
No, and I love that you just said that because it is really hard for people to just be themselves. And that's like the statement that people always say is just be yourself. And people are always like, but I am. Myself is nervous and uncomfortable and awkward. Like, how do you just
There
be
you
yourself?
go.
How do you let that cool side of you out? And that's the beginning of every single one of my programs is really figuring out who you are, right? Because if you're walking around not really knowing who you are, you don't know how to express it. You don't know how to say it. You don't know how to act on it. So I have this
Mhm.
exercise that's called what's your animal, right? And what your animal is it's helping you have a visual of who you are. And once you know who you are, you know how you talk, you know how you joke around, you know how you interact with women. When you can see it, then you can become it. But if you're just walking around aimlessly and you're like, I don't know what just be yourself, it's because I don't know what myself is. I'll just be this awkward person because I'm so confused about who I am. And I feel bad about putting my real self out there. But the truth is, I don't
Mhm.
really know who my real self is. So, I mean, that is the process for getting out of your head and getting more comfortable in your
Right.
body. Again,
No,
it takes work.
it does. Well, and you know what? When part of the thing that I have kind of ignored that for a long time because I always used, when I first got into the whole pickup industry through the double your dating stuff and
Oh
mystery
yeah,
like
that's like old school.
yeah, well, yeah, I've kind of dabbled in a bit of everything, and but I focused more on the tactics on what they were saying and not myself, and I realized that that was kind of not getting me nowhere in the interaction. Like I can talk
Yeah.
to someone, but then I'd still be in my head about whether or not I'm going to present it right and everything. And I eventually I had worked with a mentor who kind of taught me to be more social with people everywhere I go, not just women, but with guys and men, women of
Everybody.
all ages. And I really
Well, because
found,
that's the beginning. Oh, sorry. Go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah, and I just really found that helped me, just be able to interact with everyone and stuff, and get into that habit of talking with people.
Yeah. Well, one of the first exercises that I have in my programs is about approaching people. And like you start at the bottom of people that you're not attracted to, because most likely, if you have trouble breaking into conversation with a really attractive woman, 85% of the guys also have trouble doing that with like, someone they're totally not attracted to, an 85-year-old man who's just sitting in a bench at a bus stop, right? They feel
Hmm.
that they're not allowed to talk to them or that it's rude or that they don't have anything to say. Like one of my clients who I was working with the other night, he said he's quiet because he doesn't think anything that he says will add value.
Hmm.
He's a super smart guy. He's got a crazy cool background. Like he used to be in the Navy. He's a single father, right? Like, that's interesting. That's an
Yeah.
interesting take, like and everybody has something interesting because everybody sees the world differently, and I think, for so many guys, focusing on those areas first of figuring out who you are and how you wanna be in the world, number 1, and then that leads into figuring out that your statements have value because you have your own unique perspective.
Hmm.
Right? That you can bring into the conversation. Even if something's already been said, you could have a simple twist with 2 words that could make an impact, right?
Hmm.
Every everybody has their own magical special thing about them, and to not share that and cut that off is like a huge disservice, I think. So once people realize
Hmm.
that more, and it takes time because if you've been programmed for a long time that what you say isn't interesting or what you say won't bring value, that's a
Hmm.
really tough thing to suddenly believe about yourself. But as you start to put yourself out there more and you get the reinforcement that, oh, okay, people do like what I say, or they like when I speak up, or they like when I repeat back to them exactly what they said, but with my own spin, then you're like, all right, I'm going to do this more often.
Hmm. Right. No, that's true. I mean, see that was one of the things I realized. Like, 'cause you're right. I was programmed to thinking a certain way about myself and everything. But the more you challenge yourself to like in life, I think I did like a sort like a clip on my YouTube channel that you got to challenge yourself to do something that you're uncomfortable with doing because that's the only way you're going to grow. So I always try to like find new challenges for myself.
Ooh, I love it. What's your latest challenge?
Well, I just told you today I left a job that I was dissatisfied with. I got paid good money and benefits, but I got a new job I'm doing right now, but it's a little less than no benefits. But I'm actually going. I've been doing a lot of interviews with the jobs that are going to make that happen. But I'm all about personal growth, and I was just not growing at this place that
There
I've
you
been.
go.
And no offense towards the company, it's a very good place. I've learned a lot. In my career, and I've met a lot of nice people. But I just wanted to make a change in my life, and I had put in my 2 weeks about 2 weeks ago, and I was just like thinking about, I'm like, should I? But I'm like, no, I got to do it because I don't want to be doing the same thing like 10 or
Yeah,
30 years down
and
the
good
road.
for you. That is a huge risk, but that is awesome. It's
Yeah.
scary for most people to do that. But the thing is like, if you're not if you're not I don't even wanna use the word happy because I don't know, there's like a weird connection to that word happy, but like if you aren't satisfied, or if you aren't being challenged, and if you aren't getting what you want in the workspace that you are, like you have to free yourself up so that you have time and space to actually find something that does challenge you,
Right,
right? It's
exactly.
it's amazing. Most people would stay same thing with a, a marriage. Many people stay in an unhappy marriage because they're scared of the other side. Many people stay in a horrible job that like they
Mhm.
dread every single day just because they're afraid that there's nothing else that will come. So
Right,
it's awesome.
exactly. Well, I have a very good mentor. He's both my business mentor, and also he's very good at like self awareness and stuff. And he's helps me have a lot of those aha moments in my life. And
I
it's
love
weird because even when I on this journey with women too, like I can reflect what I've learned from him onto that, and it's just happy, to kind of challenge yourself to break out of that. And sometimes you get stuck, you get thrown back for a bit, but you got to have that awareness. Like,
totally.
I mean, when I came to you, I remember probably back in 2016, 17, like I've only had two girlfriends at the time, and the girl I moved out here to Arizona with, well, it didn't work out, and and it's just like she was just carrying some baggage from marriage, so it's perfectly fine. But I'm like, and then I was doing the online dating stuff, um, and I just wanted to kind of break out of that and be more social and everything. So I remember we were talking. You were giving me so. I remember you were giving me the whole observational like thing to start conversation. So I applied a lot of that, and I worked with a guy in Vancouver, Canada, who was just all about doing socializing with them. And he actually challenged me one time to go into a Victoria's Secret or a makeup shop to talk to them, which is totally out of my comfort zone.
Love it.
But I did do the Victoria's Secret a couple times because I realized it was really no big deal after doing it. But see, that's what you got to, like I said, you got to, if you want to, grow and become good with women, you got to challenge yourself to go out there and do it. And I made it happen.
Yeah.
I met like I don't know how many, but I met a lot of women. I'm not ready to settle down at the moment because like I realize I'm not at that stage yet. Unfortunately, but because I'm just focused on building my life. And I can't make time
Love
for
that.
a relationship. So, but I know what I want. But I just because being able to just take the risk and challenges and kind of try new things like one of the things that I had trouble doing even on a first date was just flirting with a girl. Like I didn't think you can kiss a girl on a first date or even take a girl home on a first date, but I challenged myself to like do that, and I made it happen.
And I love that. I think
So
that's amazing. Like the fact that you even on your own just challenge yourself on your own, that takes like a certain kind of person. So I think it's amazing. It's
right.
hard, right? Because people get really comfortable with just being as they are. It's hard to push.
Mhm.
Like
Right,
even
exactly.
yeah, for myself, I got complacent with my workouts and I was like, oh, I could go up 5 pounds, but it feels really nice at this. And then, when the new year happened, I was like, okay, fine, I'm going up 5 pounds in all
Mhm.
areas. And like I see a difference, like my muscles are stronger. I feel good. I look good. Like, you gotta
There you
push
go.
yourself sometimes.
Right. And you just reminded me that's what I got to get back into the gym. It's been like a month. I've just been like so, but that I can still make time, but I'm just so busy. But yeah, I definitely that's one challenge I got to set for myself. Because sometimes you're right. I think that can happen too. Like you can get complacent with like in relationships, or you can be dating someone you're complacent. You don't want to take a chance and leave this person for someone else, and you got to be able to like be able to have that awareness that like, hey, you got to be comfortable breaking out of it. So. It's
Exactly.
really difficult.
Exactly.
Um, but no, like one of the other topics, like going on to touch base on. Okay, so we were talking about like how I know that it seems you've done some videos about how guys most end up in the friend zone all the time. That and just having a hard time flirting and stuff. Do you think a lot of that stems from like the social conditioning or nice guy behavior or just lack
Totally.
of experience? Like, what have you seen over the years?
Any and all of the above. Like if they don't have the experience doing it, they don't think they can do it, they don't know how to do it, they don't know when to do it. It's just difficult, right? They probably know it in their head. They've seen it on television, but they've never put it out in person because they're afraid that they'll get rejected, they'll get slapped, they'll insult, they'll do it wrong. There's so many things. It's the same thing. It's like I'm not going to do it because I don't know how it's going to work. right? So again, those baby steps about doing
Right.
it. Yeah.
No, and when you think a lot of that also comes from just having awareness, like being able to read a woman, like just get a feeling for the interaction and see, being able to tell how the woman's interested in you and stuff. Like I think that comes over time. I would say just like kind of going out there and having the experience because I realize, and I'm sure most of your clients have, like the more like even though you do the baby steps thing, I think just getting the experience and just taking the chance. Like if you don't take a chance, like I had to like take a chance to, and I still do this every time. I always go for a kiss at a first date. If I did it, I did it. But I always find the girls who are interested. Give me that kiss.
Yeah. Oh, 100. It's funny. We actually have we started doing this in July, these flirting sessions that we do because so I sold this program that was called the F Formula. Tons of people got it, right? And
Hmm.
they put it to practice, they did it on their own. It was great. But I was thinking like, oh, what if we gave guys like a safe space to actually practice in? And so we've started implementing these flirting sessions for guys who buy the F formula.
Oh wow, that's fun.
Yeah, so they get to interact with our wing girls and actually flirt, and like that has a major impact on
Hmm.
on on how quickly they're able to hone that new skill because they get to practice in a safe environment with a coach, kind of like what you were saying with your mentor. Like it is hard to motivate yourself, but when you have somebody else there, it's like okay, it happens faster because you're doing it for them
Hmm.
at the beginning, and then you do it for you, and then you start to have a new skill set.
Hmm. That's an interesting concept. I was really like, how did you come up with that idea? That's a very interesting concept. 'Cause the thing that you got going on over there, because that will help guys kind of get that experience and stuff. You know what I'm
Totally.
saying?
Well, because I think how did we start doing this? I think I just kept saying, oh, this is how it happened. I wanted to create this is a while ago, some sort of like virtual reality experience where guys could
Okay.
practice like in a safe environment, right? And then I was like, wait, I have wing girls who work with me. Why can't they just practice with them? And so
Hmm.
we started these classes and people really liked them. So we started creating more. Now we have about 10 sessions going every single week.
That's awesome. No, I got another question because I think I was like this too. Do you think a lot of guys are just afraid to flirt or do something sexual towards a woman because they're worried about they're going to be me too or stuff like that? Because you hear a lot about that on the radio today, and I think that affects behaviors too. I mean, I even
I
have.
think it's part of it, but I think like the biggest thing that they're afraid of is coming across as creepy. So,
Hmm.
right, they don't want to creep a woman out. Like I don't know if they're thinking about the Me Too movement or, you know, getting arrested. I don't maybe that's in their subconscious, but ultimately they don't want to
Oh,
be seen as like that creepy guy. And they don't want to feel like
right.
a creepy guy, which is when, they approach a girl and she's looks at them like that. Like, okay, thanks, I have a boyfriend. They don't want to come across that face. And it is so that's the driving force, I believe, from what I'm hearing, or like there's probably a ton of stuff subconsciously going on.
Hmm.
Overall, it's I don't want to be creepy. Won't that be creepy if I do that?
Do you think that comes with like trauma from childhood or something? A lot of that, or
I
like
think
just
everything
like
comes from
early.
childhood. We just did a master class. So I do a master class every single month where a different expert comes on and teaches them
Oh,
how to do
okay.
a topic. And we had someone talking about no more Mr. Nice Guy, and she was saying that for 90% of guys, most of the nice guy behavior comes from their relationship with their mother.
Hmm.
That's where most of it comes from, and most of their training from some female figure in the past, whether it's a past girlfriend, most likely and most often it's a mother, a teacher, an aunt, a grandmother, right? Who's
Hmm.
telling them just be nice or always handle my emotions or just be quiet and just like make sure that I'm okay, right? So for them that is traumatic, right? That from early on they weren't really allowed to be the masculine men that they could or should be, right? And
Hmm.
because they weren't allowed to play around with it, or they were told to be silent by their moms, or, there's tons of other trauma that can happen from your mother,
Hmm.
having to deal with her own psychological issues. They learn to be silent, right? Don't rock the boat, keep her happy. And that's what happens with nice guy behavior, because that's what you see happening with nice guys. They're
Hmm.
just there to please and appease, right? Because
Right.
they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to rattle her emotions. They don't want to get
Mhm.
ruffle any feathers. So
Yeah.
it's easier to just be nice. And that becomes learned behavior.
Right. It's funny you said that because my parents were divorced and I grew up with this, in a single mom
Oh, single
environment.
mom. Okay, well, there you
Yeah.
go.
So I realized, that's where I got a lot of my behaviors, the way you got to treat a woman. You can't talk to a girl like that. And I realized that, and like, and just kind of working through mentoring and just reflection and stuff, just kind of learn to brush that off and stuff, but yeah, I was always taught like, especially my dad, like, he's like, if you have a messy car, like, girls not gonna like you. But then when I've had been in women's cars, their cars have been messy. And
Absolutely.
I
That's
always
fair.
tell them,
It's not nice when you walk into a guy's car and it's dirty because it just means
yeah,
like, weren't you thinking about impressing me? Same thing when a
right,
guy goes into a girl's car. Like, aren't you kind of thinking the same thing? Like, don't you care what I
right,
think?
right.
Even if you're a
No,
slob on your own, it's still like, didn't you like prep for this date?
right. No, I hear you. Well, I mean, sometimes on those first dates when they don't prep and they don't know that, when they like,
That's
hey,
true.
yeah,
That's true.
it's
Like my husband, so when I met him and I went over to his house for the first time, his place was like immaculate, right? And then I later found
Mhm.
out everything was shoved in the closet. I found out he was a huge slob, and I was already hooked on him by that point.
Yeah, too late. He got you there.
Yeah, exactly. He sucked me in with his cleanliness, and then he,
Mhm.
pulled the wool over my eyes.
Well, no, I agree with you, and that's important, especially if I'm bringing someone. If I know I'm going to have someone back, I always make sure my apartment is clean and everything because, like, and I'm pretty much a cleansy person, but I get busy. I got like a side business I do. I do my YouTube and I
Oh
work
yeah.
full time, so it's like I
Listen,
forget about. I'm like,
it's
fuck,
not
I
going to
got
be
to
the
clean up.
only thing, right? But it can be a make or break. So Kristen, who's the co-host of my podcast, there were other things going on with her boyfriend, but the fact that he was a slob, she couldn't stand it. Like it
Mhm.
literally like would turn her off. She would have a hard time like having like sleeping with him because she would just be looking around his place and there would just be stuff everywhere. Right. So she was
Mhm.
already in that state. So it took extra work to get her to like, okay, let's be sexy now.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah. But it is important. Like, I mean, just like your hygiene and everything. Like,
Oh
I
my
always
gosh. Yeah, 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 yeah. For sure. For sure.
And sometimes, like I said, you get busy and neglect that. But I always be, sure. I always brush my teeth. I never forget to do that twice a day, floss them, mouthwash, and everything. 'Cause I got a handsome smile here, so I got to keep that going. And then I always trim the nails and stuff like that. Wear clean clothes and stuff. But sometimes you forget to trim the nails, like, oh, because you get busy. But it's important to like stay on top of that because I think first impressions are always good, and I think it kind of gives you a person the idea of the type of person you are based on hygiene, how you take care of yourself.
Totally. Well, you look really good.
Well, thank you very much. So, but no, especially I just got it for the first time. I had a diffuser for my room and everything too. So
Oh, I like
hotel
that.
smell as well.
Love it. I love that. As long as it's
So
not a patchouli smell, but like I love
right.
diffusers.
No, the only problem I do have, I have a small Italian Greyhound dog and everything, and sometimes
Well,
she'll like they have a little bit of accidents and everything, but I'm always on top of that.
there you go.
That-
At least, yeah. And
yeah.
that's fine. And that's because then you have a dog there, right? But as long as your house doesn't smell like wet dog.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But hey, I gotta get going because I gotta be somewhere in a little bit. But
Yeah,
Marnie,
me
can
too.
you tell everyone about where they can find you and tell them about your website, your YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
everything?
Well, go to winggirlmethod.com and just sign up for my newsletters, and then I tell you everything from there. But then I would say if you want to check out my YouTube channel, I post every Tuesday at 12:30 Pacific. And as I said before, I'm into baby steps, right? And I'm into hacks, tools, things that you can use, not just like grandiose, esoteric ideas about dating. I like to give concrete information that you can say, oh, I can try that, so that you can take those baby steps and take that little push to be uncomfortable that we were talking about. So if you go to YouTube and you search for Marni Wing Girl, you'll find me on there. I think I have like 500 videos or something. I've been doing it a long time, but yeah.
Well, hey, thank you. And yeah, definitely check her out. I worked with Marnie before, and she's really good. She knows what she's talking about. She ain't lying. She does have a lot of great content on her channel. And guys, be sure to give this video a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Marnie's channel if you're new. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Marnie. And I'd like to invite you on to do another show, so maybe a month or two down the
Sure.
road. Then I'd like that.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much.